Welcome to Best Friends in Franchising. I'm Morgan Noller.
And I'm Kathryn Allen.
If you're interested in franchising a new opportunity or diversifying your portfolio, you've come to the right place. We talk myths, money, mindset, and everything in between. Let's dive in. Kathryn, who do we have with us today?
Today, I am excited to introduce Desiree Trunzo. Hi, Desiree. Desiree is the president and CEO of Senior Helpers serving El Dorado and Sacramento counties. Desiree is an inspiring leader and business owner who has built a thriving franchise dedicated to helping seniors live independently with compassion, dignity, and care. With a background rooted in service and a passion for people, she's turned her mission into a business that truly makes a difference. Desiree, so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Talk to us about your journey and how you got here.
It was a wild one. I never thought, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have never told you that this is where I was going to be. But I actually spent many years of my career in veterinary medicine, taking care of pets and the teams that take care of them. And I was traveling a lot, usually 90% of the time. I was on the road, and that seems really fancy and cute. And it's just another hotel in another city. But at home, my dad had fallen and broken his hip and was taking care of my grandpa. And I'm an only child. So it was then up to my husband to go take care of grandpa, make sure dad's doing okay while he's holding down the fort at home, let alone his full time job. And one day we just looked at each other and we're like, this is not working for us. Lo and behold, my dad ended up in 3 months of skilled nursing, came home 2 weeks later, broke his hip again, and we did it all over again. And we just couldn't believe that people have to deal with this. And as we were looking for help ourselves, we're like, if we need this kind of help, other people probably need this help too. And it really sparked us to start looking at different businesses. And I never would have thought senior care. I always thought I was really connected to people when they were attached to pets. But really being in this field and hearing what Senior Helpers was about and their why and what they were passionate about when it came to taking care of clients, but taking care of their teams too, it resonated with me. And we got started, and it's been kind of a wild road ever since, where we're going on our 7th year of business now.
And how many offices do you have?
So we have 2 offices now, which I would have never thought that would happen to. And we take
Staff.
care of over 100 clients with about 100 caregivers and employees that work with us that help us do so. I never would have thought it was possible.
You're doing amazing work. For those listening and don't know, my background's in senior care. I worked for a company for 13 years. So you are speaking my language.
Yeah.
And it's such a rewarding field to be in. It doesn't, comes with its challenges, but it's just, you are doing incredible work. Senior care is it's an amazing, it's a need. It's absolutely a need. And what you're doing is providing such high quality care, because I think what you found out there is the quality isn't where we want it to be. And when it's our loved one and our family member and our mom or our dad, I feel like your story is every story I heard from franchise owners that I trained over 13 years, which was my mom or dad, we needed care, something happened. And what we found was nothing out there, exists. The quality, it's there, but the quality wasn't there. So the quality you're providing to your area, for those listening, definitely go talk to Desiree Senior Helpers. Yeah, it's amazing. Morgan,
Yes, I feel like this is such an untapped industry that people don't think about when it comes to franchising. Senior care is just not high on their list of franchises to look into, but they really should, because it's recurring revenue. It is something that everyone needs at some point in their life. Everyone has loved ones, and we're all aging. So I think, anyone listening to definitely take a look at senior care, take a look at a franchise near you. But that being said, you've scaled and you've grown so well over the years. And what do you think were like the deciding factors, or what have you done that has really helped you grow faster than other franchisees in the senior helpers industry?
It sounds really simple, but it's not when it's actually into practice, is really just leaning in and saying yes to people. There's a lot of things that happen in senior care, but most of what happens is when people decide that they need help, it's not like a decision you're thinking about for 2 years out and you can be super planful all the time. And sometimes it's someone at the hospital calling you saying, oh my gosh, mom can't come home today unless I have care starting tonight. And that can feel really nervous and anxious because you're like, what if I can't? What does that look like? So, how do we have really good, honest conversations with clients, but then do whatever we can? By the time that I'm, telling a client, like, man, like I may not have someone, I can assure them I have moved mountains. And it's also because I'm somewhere else and not, able to come do that. I would say when you're first starting is being okay with sometimes you're the one going out and helping that client go grocery shopping or make a meal or get into bed. Like it may seem like really simple tasks for us, but imagine being in a situation where you're sitting in a recliner chair and you can't get up from that chair and you can't walk the steps over to go to your bedroom to get into bed to have a restful night's sleep, but someone can come and help you with that. And a lot of times when we first started and I didn't have a really large caregiving team, that could be me. And I think that mentality is I'm here to serve, not just my caregivers in my office. I'm here to serve my clients too. So when there is opportunities for me to jump in and help out, I still like to do that. I like staying connected with my clients and hearing their stories. And I mean, some of the best life advice I've gotten sitting on shifts with clients and just chatting with them. You learn a lot when you're talking to someone who's over 100 years old. Um, because
That's
your time on
amazing.
earth all of a sudden feels like you're like, I know nothing. Like I've barely been here. And so, but it changes kind of the way you look at it. And in a way, you start to feel like you have like all these extensions of your own family and people that you take care of and all these grandparents that are around that, I mean, yesterday I just went to introduce a caregiver to a new client and the sweet little lady has dementia, but she remembered me from last week when I came to meet with her. And she gave me a big kiss on the cheek and she wears hot pink lipstick. So I had like a hot pink, and I was like, you're my girl. Like I like you a lot. And so,
That is
but
so
those kind of things, they make your day. Like not everyone who goes to work every day gets to say like, oh my gosh, like she remembered who I was and she was excited to see me enough where she was like, it made my day you coming back. And I was like, I'm just here for a few minutes to introduce you to this lovely lady. But so those kind of moments are cool. And the advice you get and the impact you have on families, not just your clients, is I like going to work. And at the end of the day, no matter what I did, I know that I made a difference somewhere. And I don't think I'd feel very fulfilled not doing that.
well,
It
you're
sounds
doing
so
amazing.
rewarding.
Yeah, amazing work and making such a difference. It's like when you work for another company and it's just, yeah, the work you're doing is truly making a difference in someone's lives. And that is so powerful. You hit on this maybe a little bit, but what was the biggest challenge when you were first getting started?
And I would imagine a lot of franchise owners find this challenge too, is I think a lot of us kind of grew up in corporate world, right? Like we obviously were doing pretty good because we had this crazy idea that we could do it ourselves. And I think at first for me, it was really hard for me to accept help and hire help and not think that I needed to be superwoman and do it all by myself every day. And even though we had tremendous growth, especially our first year, but every year after that is I wish I would have hired like my right hand right away. But I thought I knew better and I was like,
Well, and it's a financial commitment, right?
totally.
It's a financial commitment, and not everyone can afford to do. I couldn't afford to hire someone right away. I
Yeah.
had to start the business and start getting revenue in order to,
Totally.
you know,
Absolutely. Even then I was like, I could do the work of a couple people. I'm fine. But even just having that extra person, I think if I would have done that in the beginning, invested in them and their training and gotten them up to speed, I think I would have grown faster because there does come a point where there's only so many places you can be at one time. No matter how much you will it to happen, is you can't be in a client's home doing a new client assessment answering your phones and out marketing your business in the same moment of the day. You could do it throughout the day, but they're definitely there. I hit some roadblocks where I was like, I need to clone myself. If I could figure that out, I would be fine.
Maybe
Yeah.
billionaires.
So, at least not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe.
It's coming.
No, and I think that makes the best franchise owners when you step back and say, where do I need to replace myself? Can I grow my business so I'm not working in it? Like Kathryn talked about this yesterday, just working on the business, not in the business, which was so brilliant and it's so true. But I think that separates the better franchise owners is when they realize that they can't do it all and they have to replace themselves. And then they step back and go, what does that look like? And who do I need to hire in order to do that? Like for Soccer Stars, I have a VA and she does a lot of back office for me because that was just taking way too much time. Lots of email communication is amazing for parents, but I don't have time to do that if I'm out selling. So, and now Kathryn has a manager. I'm working on hiring my manager. It's just so important to replace those people or those positions that you have so that you can grow your business, and you can't do it. If you're doing it all, you're stuck.
Yeah. There's only, I mean, no matter how amazing you are, there's only so much you can do without, completely running yourself into the ground though too. And you got
And
to
we
be,
are we are women in small business, and we're wrapping up the month here. We only have a few more days, but that was the whole point of having everybody on this podcast this month, is because we are moms and we have other things going on. And I know that our spouses help a ton where they can, but we're still juggling all the things. So we can't do that in the business. We can't do that on the home front either. We need help. It takes a village.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, senior care, so it's such a people driven business. I'm curious, like, when you build your team, where are you finding these people and how are you keeping them engaged? And what does that look like Kathryn and I have been very lucky with our employees, and a lot of them have been with us for a long time, but there is turnover for sure. What does that look like for you? And how have you built this team that you have?
One thing we wanted to do differently, and I don't know if this is because of my background I had with training and developing teams before, is I wasn't stuck in the box that I only wanted to hire people that have worked in the field before. Like, I came from outside the field. I learned the skills and techniques that you need to be able to do hands on care, to learn more about memory changes, all those things. So I know that they're trainable. So I really just focused on how do I identify the competencies that are going to be best for each of our positions that we need to hire for. And that's what we're interviewing and that's what we're looking for. And there's some things of those competencies you can develop, right? Skill and experience, you can develop that. Even, communication skills, you can develop that too. Professionalism, you can give someone coaching on that. But trust and integrity, dependability, those things, you got them or you don't. And I would say doing interviews was probably one of my things that took me a really long time to give up, because I was so passionate about, if we're hiring the right caregivers to go into the homes, that makes all the difference in the world. This is not a business where we can just hire someone because they applied. It's just not. And we get a lot of applications. And no matter what I do, we hire at about 4 to 6% of our applications that we get in, which isn't a lot. I have a recruiter now. Her job is hard because despite what we need from a hiring front, we're not willing to bend on our competencies and the kind of people that we want to hire. And so we're really hiring for competency rather than just experience, which I think gives us a different kind of caregiver. And some of the places that I look for caregivers may seem a little weird, So some of my best caregivers I've had have been students that are in the police academy, fire academy. Obviously, our nursing students do a great job, but sometimes it's anyone that's kind of service based, EMT students and paramedic students, they're going to be dealing with people in really hard situations. And them being able to learn the soft skills of how do I work with someone one on one to encourage them maybe to do something that they don't want to do or that they need to do. But how do I do that in a way that feels good for everybody? That's going to help them so much more in their career when they're in that field that they've worked really hard to be in. So I think sometimes our turnover does account for that, as we have a lot of students on our team, but we have a lot of people that this is a new field for them and they have found their passion and found their purpose with that. I have a caregiver on my team. He's been with me for almost 6 years. I have someone else on my team that started the first year we opened, and now she's our client service manager too. And most of my office team has come from my caregivers. So when I'm looking at office team and people who want to grow and develop, I wanted to have a career path for them. Because what I heard when I first started was your office team can never be caregivers. And that broke my heart because what's the ladder for them? What's the movement? What's the development? So we're just saying that once you're hired as a caregiver, that's it. Like I didn't believe that at all. And I like made it a point. I was like, no, like why are we saying that this group of people doesn't have the skill or they can't be developed into other roles? And so actually every position in my office right now has came from a caregiver role with me. And my recruiter, my scheduler, my client service manager, both of my client service coordinators, they've worked with us as caregivers and they were obviously rock stars. And so we started tapping them on the shoulder of like, what else do you like to do? Like, where else can we help you? But that made such a different office staff. I'm not going to have an office team that if a caregiver calls in and says, I'm having a really hard time giving Mrs. Smith a shower because her dementia is getting worse and I don't know what to do. If you haven't worked in the field, that's going to be a harder conversation rather than someone's like, you know what? 6 months ago when I was working with this other client, here's some things that I could do and here's some training that we can help give you. And you know what? Let me come out there and help you. And none of my office team, they're not scared to come out and make sure our clients are getting taken care of, and making sure our caregivers feel supported. And I think that makes a difference because we hear that from our caregiving staff that have worked other places that they're like, well, I call the office and nobody knows what I'm talking about. And it's like, ooh, like that sounds terrible. Like where do you go for support then? So I wanted to make our office structure different. I wanted the people we hired overall to be different. And I want to give them as much development and support as they need to do a good job, whether that be to stay with us forever, which I would love, but I get, or to go on to other places. And so that's always really cool to see is when you have a caregiver you worked with a long time that, we're friends on Facebook and now she's a canine officer. Like, I'm like, you're, how badass are you? Like, look at you go. It's rewarding to see, even if they do leave us to go somewhere else. I love to see them grow and develop and know that we had at least a part in that journey.
I love
I think Kathryn on the same page. We don't realize how much we're affecting other people's lives because we know you're going to affect these seniors, right? That's obvious, but you don't realize it's like your employees, you're empowering these people that you never even thought that would be the rewarding part, double up with what you're doing. Go ahead, Kathryn.
Well, it just the pathway. I love that you have established that pathway up, and it's just so funny when you talk. There's so many similarities and parallels between what you just described and how Morgan and I operate our businesses and where we recruit our coaches. I told you last week on the call, some of my best coaches have been nursing students as well. That's
Mhm.
actually something I look for because to me that means that they care about people. Obviously, and it's at both ends of the spectrum. They're both, vulnerable populations. You have kids at one end and you have seniors and the elderly at the other. Um, and I think I was laughing because I am not ready to give up the interviews of the coaches. I can't do it yet because I understand exactly what you're saying. Like I am that first line of, it's not only an interview learning about them, but I am there to get these people I'm talking to excited and inspired about our mission at Soccer Stars. And I just don't know right now if anyone else can do that as well as I can. I'm just so passionate and like I need to
You'll
get
find
them.
them. You'll find them.
I will. I definitely will. But I absolutely understand that. And hey, I'm like 2.5 years in, you're 7 years in. Like I'm just, I'm not there yet. But moving on to community involvement. So senior helpers, a big part of, what you do is there's so much you do in the community and the impact that you make. You talk to us about some events you do. Talk to us about what that looks like and how that's helped your growth for senior
Well,
helpers.
absolutely. And I mean, I guess we're involved with the community in so many different ways.
Mhm.
Like one really fun event that we try to do every year is around Valentine's Day. We do a Dear Senior project. So We actually partner with local elementary schools, preschools, churches, everything, and we collect Valentines, which I might be hitting you guys up this year. And last year we got together, it was around a little over 900 Valentines that we were able to drop off to local senior centers, assisted living, memory care. We took around 250 just to the VA hospital. And it was fun, and we made some Valentines, our caregivers, their kiddos. But it was nice to be able to go out into the community and do that and talk about that. And I have a lovely, lovely person on my team. She is like so much education and experience with Alzheimer's and dementia. She holds monthly support groups for family members that are working with their family member who is affected with Alzheimer's dementia. And she's set up like a respite program there. So she has volunteers that come, art and music for the people who are affected so that their family members can sit and talk about what things are going on. And she does that like twice a month in different areas to help support people in the community, as well as does just general education events. Because I think what we found, which I'm not a doctor or a clinician, however, what we see is there's not a ton of education that's happening when people are getting diagnosed or when people are on that path of diagnosis for their family. And if you know what's happening in the brain and why someone's doing what they're doing, that makes it a little bit easier to have a better understanding, to learn a different technique, rather than just being frustrated that this person that you know and love is so different than what you've always been used to. And so those education events, we've done them just out into the community in senior centers. We've been at assisted living where people and their families can come. We've done independent living. She's been amazing. I cannot do what she does. And the amount of knowledge that she has, every time I watch her, I'm learning something new. And so finding someone for your team like that is amazing, and that gives us some help that we can do out in the community. But then we try to partner with our community when they have programs that are happening too. Especially up in El Dorado County, we partner really closely with the caregiver respite program. So the
Nice.
county will identify people that are in need of help, and it's their family member that's trying to take care of them, where we can come in for a grant of so many hours to help try to get them out doing the things that they need to do, to let them know that there's support and give them a breath so they can come up with a plan of what is next. We also work really closely with Adult Protective Services. They have some grant programs that if they identify someone who is needing that extra help, we can come in and support them. And then we work extremely closely with our Veteran Affairs. So especially in El Dorado County, there is a high percentage of people who are retired veterans. And there's a program that the VA does that they actually get so many hours a week of homemaker home healthcare services, which we can come in and help them with their activities of daily living to help keep them safe and independent at home. And it could be anywhere from 4 hours a week to 20 hours a week, depending on their needs. But that can make a really big difference. And about, I don't know, I think it's around like 35% of our clients are on that program, but that program's highly underutilized. And a lot of times people just need to ask about it. So that's my plug. If you are a veteran and you are aging, ask about these programs that are out there to help you, because there might be something that's out there, just it's not really something that is, it's not going to be televised on TV or on the radio, so you have to learn about it.
And I think with us being an Air Force family, we're aware of where to tap into all of these things, but it's just now becoming that way. It was very difficult to get information. It's always difficult, right? Because everyone's busy, any government job. It's just really hard to get information. So it's good that you are out there spreading the word. I love that. And I also, you're touching on something that I don't want to gloss over on this podcast for anyone listening. Senior helpers, you don't have to be in the medical field. I just want to drive that home a little bit harder because the people that you're hiring for sure, but you didn't come from that field either. And so I think, you're not saying you're a nurse or a doctor. You don't have to own a senior helpers franchise with any kind of medical background. You can come in and learn and get that education and then all of your employees that you're hiring. Some have it, some don't. So I think when you think senior care, I think sometimes people do think, oh, well, I don't have that. I don't have a nursing degree. I don't have a background in working with
Right.
elderly people. I think it gets missed a little bit. I know I didn't understand that when I was looking at different franchises. I just thought, well, I have no experience in senior care. I just stayed far away from it and didn't even look into it. And I think that was kind of a mistake. I probably should have at least looked into it a little bit.
I'm glad you brought that up, Morgan, because coming from the industry, I gloss over, because I mean, gloss over in the sense of I just understand, but you're right. It's non medical senior care. And so for
Mhm.
those who, again, when I did this fun kind of marketing campaign, we were based in Palo Alto and we went out, it was Woman on the Street. And we went up to these random people and we said, do you know what home care is? 9 out of 10 people didn't really, no one could answer the question correctly.
Yeah.
It was, even when I applied for my job as PR marketing managers, where I started at Home Care Assistance, I thought home care meant caring for the home, like mowing the lawn, washing the
Yeah.
windows. So it's truly that until you have a loved one or someone affected or needing care, do you understand all the different options and then realize how overwhelming it is, because you independent care, you have assisted living, you have CCRCs, you have, like, what do all these things mean? Home care, home health, like it is a lot to understand. So I love the education piece that you're doing out there, Desiree, especially your staff member with the family caregiver support for those with dementia, because you're right. Like Morgan and I have a very, very dear friend whose dad has Alzheimer's. I think my friends forget that I was in this field for a long time and understand it really well. And so I try to help where I can and, introduce them to different people within our area locally
Yeah.
that I trust, because it's a trust thing of, hey, like, remember Morgan, home care assistants cared for your grandmother at a
There's
certain.
my grandmother, and she's just, well, every grandmother has her thing, but of course someone had come into her home and didn't know. She asked for a peach, and the woman said, well, I don't know the difference between a peach and a nectarine. She immediately fired her. She was like, you're out. So I called Kathryn. I said,
Sure.
we'll just make sure they know their fruits, and then we'll
Yeah.
be good to go. But it does take, someone like Kathryn that had my trust and my grandmother's trust. And then she said, okay, we'll try again. They want that trust factor, and you want it for your loved one too.
And that's like, and even my grandmother, who lived in Sacramento, obviously didn't know you yet, Desiree.
That's
This
okay.
was like 9 years ago, but the owner there I loved her. I mean, she's wonderful. She's probably still operating. Did a great job. I knew she would be VIP treatment, but my grandmother insisted no one in her home. It had to be my mom and my aunt. My aunt lived down the street in Sacramento, my mom in Orinda, which is about an hour, 15-minute drive. And it took them down, like health wise, caring for them like that around the clock. It really, really did. And it wasn't my place, but was like, if you could just bring in a caregiver to help so that you can be that daughter again and spend this time. Cause that's what it is a lot of the time too, is that quality time as a daughter, not the care, just all the things. But it was her wishes and they wanted to uphold the wishes. So it's, lots to navigate. And I don't want to harp on this too much, but it's an amazing service you provide.
Yeah,
Well, I
it
think
really is. And I think we also, sorry, I was just going to say that I was going to ask you what sets you apart from the competition, but I don't even feel like we need to ask that on this podcast. I think you
I think
covered
you've
it.
said it all.
I
Yeah.
think you said it all. This is what sets senior helpers up here apart from everybody else, is like you care so much. You've built this amazing team. You're in it. You're the yes person. That's
Mhm.
amazing that you said that. I've always felt that I say yes first, then I figure it out later. But I know I'll get there.
You'll
So I'm always
figure
like,
it out. Like, you will figure it out. And I think that's the thing is, like, sometimes I mean, not to generalize, but I think sometimes, especially as women, is like there's some doubt there, right? Where we're like, what if I let somebody down? What if there's always a what if. And I think if you have really good, honest communication with people, then you're all on the same page. And at least they know that you're trying your best. But like these families need help. And I think in a lot of different industries, we spend a lot of time talking about compassion fatigue, right? We hear about it in veterinary medicine a lot with our doctors, our nurses, everything, which that is all very true. And there's the family caregivers that we don't talk about it enough with, that just because it's your family member doesn't mean that you don't have compassion fatigue. And it doesn't mean that this isn't hard and that every time you go in, you're doing your to-do list rather than being a daughter, like you said. That wears on people. And there's a ton of studies out there. I wish I could actually quote the actual studies, but that show as we start taking care of someone full time, a lot of times that family caregiver's health starts going down too. And when we talk about like you can't pour from an empty cup, like scientifically, we really can't. And we can't do that forever. And I think that having that awareness of like taking care of loved ones, yes, you do that because it's an act of love, it's act of service. You feel like you should because they took care of you when you were younger. That doesn't make it less hard. And it doesn't make it less challenging or less work. That doesn't stop. At 5 p.m., you don't get to clock out. You're still there. And just because you're there making dinner, like you would maybe at home, that doesn't mean it's not a job because you don't get to just be at home. You get to be in their home doing the things. And I think a lot of people forget that when you're a daughter, granddaughter, son, or grandson, and you're trying to do these things to help out someone else, that it is hard and it does wear on you too, mentally and physically.
Yeah. I think to wrap, what advice would you give to someone looking into senior care franchising?
I would say that Senior Helpers wasn't the first franchise we talked to either. So I think one of the biggest things that helped me be successful is the level of support that Senior Helpers gives us. So they are very passionate about making sure that their owners are very supported. And I I had a playbook. Like I had everything to go off of. And what I loved about them is they were so passionate about how do you deliver exceptional client experience? How do you really train and develop your team? And how do you have a great operation? I had other calls with, I will not name other franchises, but all they wanted to talk about was my ROI that I was going to get.
Hmm.
Sure, that might resonate with someone. It didn't resonate with me because there's a lot of jobs or a lot of franchises I could do that I would probably get a really great ROI, right? Or if I was just worried about the money, why would I risk being a business owner? I would just go work for somebody else with a lot less liability and responsibility. So, what I loved about Senior Helpers is like, sure, we talked about that, but that wasn't the first thing we talked about. The first thing was they wanted to make sure I was the right person for them, which I liked because I knew then that my colleagues out in the field, if you're buying into a franchise, you're buying into the brand. I want to know that in whatever state Senior Helpers is operating in, they vetted their franchise owners to have our brand standard and to make sure that they're delivering the same way I would. And we all run our own businesses, but if you're buying into a brand that you don't know the consistency of the brand, what's the point? And so I love that.
I think you touched on something really interesting right there because we talk to clients and there's a good amount of clients that have dropped the ball because they think they're a shoo-in to that franchise. And I think that's a huge misconception that people have is like, I'm picking the business for me. But it's not, it's a relationship. And that franchisor can say no to you. And they do say no to you.
Yeah,
They're
they
building
should,
their brand.
right? Yeah, like because they have to protect their brand too. And I've never been in a situation at Senior Helpers where I've had a question or had a problem and haven't been able to call someone and get immediate help. And
That's powerful.
I needed that because I didn't know what I was doing. So there's a lot of situations you come up against as a business owner that you're like, hmm, cool. I have no idea. Let's figure it out. But Senior Helpers has been great. And we build really great relationships with our other owners in our areas. And there's always someone you can call, whether it be another owner or your corporate team. But they are passionate about making sure that we're successful as owners, which I've worked on the other side of a corporation where we had franchise owners and I was on the corporate team. And I could say that in that space, we didn't have the same relationship. And so it was almost like, well, they just do their own thing. No, they're over there. But it's like they want us to be successful because that helps them be successful too. But they want us to deliver on the things that is their brand and our brand together and our mission to make sure we're doing good out in the world.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story and your successes and your challenges and just being so authentic and open. You're doing amazing things in your area, and Senior Helpers is so lucky, truly, to have you. It's just so clear what an amazing owner you are, an inspiration and boss. I mean, the pathway, the caregiver path, that's big. Like, I don't know anyone else who did that. So Senior Helpers, it sounds like it's an incredible franchise. For those of you listening, if you have any questions or are interested in franchising, please go to thefranchiseinsiders.com. You can find more information about Morgan and myself. And again, thank you, Desiree, for coming on, and we'll see everyone next week.
Thank
Bye.
you.